Hello, good morning, everyone, and welcome to our phototherapy pop-up session. I'm Alec Ahrens, and it's my great pleasure to welcome you all this morning. And while I refresh the Facebook page or the YouTube page to make sure that we truly are live, I'm going to turn it over to Rick, and Rick can introduce our guest.
Well, thank you so much, Alec, for setting this up. It's always fun to do these pop-up sessions. You know, we have the regular sessions on Thursday 5 p.m. Eastern, but these are a ton of fun. So anyway, today's special guest, all the way from India, and it's nighttime in India right now, is our friend Ramesh Raja. And Ramesh is so popular. He is so popular on the Phototherapy Facebook group page that I said, I have to have him on there. So Alec is a big fan of Ramesh also. And there's so many people saying comments. I love his work. He's a master. People are saying he's a master of light and shadows and composition and people photography and street photography. And I could go on and on and on. But we really want to introduce Ramesh and thank him for coming. So it's 10 o'clock right here on the East Coast in New York. And Ramesh, welcome.
Yep, thank you, Rick. And it's 30 past 8 p.m. at Chennai.
So it's nice 30 past 8. So it's not only like a number of hours difference; it's a number of hours and a half hour.
Yeah.
How did that ever come to be?
I think the GMT somehow. India is the only one which has a odd timing, which does not follow the 5-5-5. It's we are actually 5.5 hours ahead of GMT. But you look at any other nation, it's either 5 or 6.
I know.
So we are somewhere in between.
Yeah, so it's a good thing we have the iPhones with the world clock in there. You know, if we want to meet for sunrise. And speaking of meeting for sunrise, for our members, I've become such a fan of Ramesh's work that we're planning on going over there, maybe doing a workshop in 2022. And Ramesh would be the co-workshop. He'd be the main workshop leader. I'd just be like his assistant. But I think this is going to work out after all this virus stuff is over. So anyway, Ramesh is here today to share some of his favorite images. So Ramesh, why don't you just take it away? And for our members, if you have any comments, please comment. So take it away, Ramesh.
We will be checking the question box, and we see a number of people have joined already.
Awesome.
Okay, thank you then. And today I'll be showing my images, and it's all about light. And to me, light makes a very distinct impression on my images. And I'm always trying to what we call chase the light, and therefore shadows and highlight are an important or integral part of my images. So I'll be running through a set of images that I've taken at my hometown, Chennai, and a few images from Varanasi. And if you have any questions, do let me know. So my first image is from Chennai. Here is an image that I took from an overhead bridge as these guys were rowing into the bridge early in the morning, and you have a distinct light coming in from the side. And what impressed me most was the shadows on the water and the dark murky water, which gave a good contrast to the boat here. So it's all about, once again, about light and colors here. My next image was in the streets of Chennai. Once again, early in the morning, between 6:30 and 7. And this was taken outside a temple. What you see is a street umbrella and a strong directional light bouncing off the umbrella, and you have a glow of yellow color all around. So it's once again the direction of the light and colors which made me take this image.
Hey, Ramesh, if I could ask you a question about that awesome image, because there's a couple of things I like. Actually, there's many things I like about that image, but I like that alleyway behind, and that you have really good depth of field. I like the color. You know how the color, the blue and the yellow, like go together. But when you're out there shooting, do you think about like what's one of the first things you think about after the light and the shadows? Is it like depth of field?
It depends on the image. Here, of course, I was not. I didn't pay much concentration to the alley there, and the alley was actually a bit underexposed. And when I tried to remove give a bit more exposure to it, the white balance gave me the blue color, and I decided to retain because of the yellow and the blues here. The second thing is I also use a APS-C camera. It's not a full frame, and most of my exposures are around 5.6 or f8, and therefore I get the desired depth of field. And in this image, of course, I wanted to get the you see that small the round traffic sign there.
Yep.
So I wanted to get that into the picture, but of course I didn't have much light there.
Well, I like that.
So
There's so much going on in that image.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of comments about the contrast, questioning whether or not you used HDR to this, but it's a single shot, correct?
Yeah, it's a single shot. It's not a HDR. And once again, most of the time I try to expose for the highlights, and on my Fuji I can always pull in the shadows. It's you get a lot of information from the shadows in the Fuji. So I keep a watch on my highlights, and that it's not blown out. And one of the advantages of using a mirrorless is everything is on the screen. You don't spend much time on trying to figuring out the exposure.
True.
So I'll go to the next image. This was a trip that I'd made with my students down south, and here was this lady washing her clothes on a local pond, and the color and the streak of light which hit her immediately was a subject for me. And then I also decided to give a bit of a slow exposure so that I can blur the motion, and this is what I finally obtained. And you can also see a reflection of one of the guy's legs. He's sitting on the ledge there. So it's like what you call a streak of light hitting the lady, and then the contrast and the colors, which is what was made this image here.
Yeah, that streak of light is so cool that you saw it. And also, in the background, you say that you see the reflection, and in your umbrella shot, it was the background. So I guess you're looking all around. You're looking at the subject and you're looking at the background.
Yeah, and for me, most of the time my aperture is 5.6, which are full frame translate by f8. So you get a good depth of field once again. So this was Palace down south, and it's not a HDR image. Once again, the exposure was tuned to the exposure outside the building. Because when I came in, it was a bit dark, and I could see the streak of light. You see that white light hitting one of the walls and then falling on the ground. And that is what I wanted to capture. And of course, when you take an image, this is not the image that you get out of the camera. I had to do a bit of processing using radial filters so that I could get the streak of light a bit more prominent. But you can see that I've retained the exposure outside. You can see the greens, and you just get the contrast of the light, which forms a sort of a L shape on the wall and the ground. This is a portrait of an artist, street artist in our state called Kerala, and he's just getting his makeup ready, taken with natural light and a 50 mm lens. The colors and the background, of course, he's wearing a white band on his head, but what was striking was the mask that he had applied on his face.
Well, I like the mask, but I also like the catch light in his eyes. That really makes the eyes sparkle. Now, does this happen only one time a year, or does this happen throughout the year? Because Susan and I were there, and we couldn't find street artists like this.
This happens between the months of November and January.
Uh-huh.
Sometimes it goes up to February or March also, and in various places within Kerala. So you got to find out which month you want to visit, and
Hmm.
during that month, which place in Kerala this would happen. And it's an
Ah,
amazing sight. It's something that you should not miss. Maybe you should time it. If you're coming
yes.
in February, so yeah, it's a good enough place to go there. 3 days or 4 days, and most of the action happens at night. So you need to not only the action. The best time to photograph is during the night and more than the day.
So you're shooting at
The
high
process.
ISO?
Yes, this is about 1600 ISO, and maybe fully open 1.8 or f2, and
I'm
in
sorry.
this one light,
What was the ISO?
1600, maybe 1600 or 3200.
See,
I'm not too
so
sure.
that
One of these two.
so
Yeah,
that's
I don't go
important for
beyond.
those of us with sorry to interrupt, with ISO high ISO phobia, right? Look, and if I could offer a comment from the chat, right? The camera looks both ways, right? The
Yes.
intensity of the intensity of the image, of
Yes.
Yeah,
the
it's a
and the
prime lens that I
eyes.
used. Yeah, so it must have been around either 1.4 and aperture 2 and a 35 mm lens. This is the same thing, a single light bulb, and this guy is getting ready with his makeup. 35 mm lens and the same ISO must be between 1600 or 3200. And unfortunately, during my entire trip here, I made a mistake. I didn't look at my camera, and I was shooting JPEG all the way. I wasn't shooting RAW, but I mean, most of the things were right on the camera, so I didn't have to do much. My white balance was right, my colors were right,
Well,
so it was a lesson.
some people may not know this, Ramesh, but when you're shooting a JPEG, you're using the same amount of pixels. So if you get the exposure right, you know,
Yeah,
I did a project recently where I shot everything in JPEG because I had to, and it worked. So I think what you're saying is get it right in camera, get the right exposure, and you've said it more than a few times. Expose for the highlights, right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
this is an amazing shot. A lot of people are interested in the technical stuff, like the ISO, the aperture, the this and that, the lens. But I think the most important thing in a picture is the mood and the feeling. And so far, in the 1, 2, 3, what do you show 5 or 6 slides? The mood and the feeling of your images is just amazing, which is why people are loving your work.
yeah. Thank you, Rick. Uh, this is an environmental portrait, and we have a place in Chennai where all the old trucks come for demolition. The parts are recycled, or they're crushed, or so here is a guy immersed in his work, and I was using a Canon with a 24-105, and the compression effect shows he's being truly immersed in what he's doing here.
Now,
The
Ramesh,
shot,
when you and I talked about this picture, I believe it was this picture last week, you
yeah,
said that you used the trick or the technique that first you showed the guy what you were doing and he posed, and then you went back to just taking pictures without him really noticing.
yeah. There are two things here. One, there are at times people notice you and then they become conscious. So in which case, then you take an image, you go and show him what the image that you have taken. He's happy with it, and then he starts doing his work. Then you are a nobody for him. He's not conscious of what you're doing. Then you can take images. So that's a technique that you follow. Most of the time, my images are all candid. I don't ask them to pose. But there are times when people recognize you with your camera. So then you have to do this. Otherwise, they act stiff and the images are not natural the way you want them to be. So this is the next picture is once again one of the condemned engines. Just the texture and the colors which impressed me here. More of an abstract or
Yeah, but I like that you're telling the story. You have the picture of the man, and then you have the abstract. So, one thing that I like to say is try to tell the story, and you're a wonderful storyteller.
Thank you. So when I have nothing to do, the best place for me to go is the local flower market. There's always a lot of action. You can go any number of times. You see something new, and it's a great place for me when I talk about my light and shadows here. So you see the look of this guy looking for a prospective customer, the shadow of, and the thing about this is very bright colors, bright lights. So it requires a lot of patience to get your exposure right here, and especially your white balance, because you have the reflection from the flowers, and you also have flowers of various colors around. So if you want to get your what do you call lessons on light, the flower market is the best place to go. The next image here is a scene which is probably about close to my house. We had gone for a photo walk early in the morning on a February morning, and we had this bright yellow light coming in through the alley. And my processing here, I gave a sort of a cinematic processing, and I like this bright light and this lady and the shadows, and then you can see this lady coming in a scooter there over there. You know,
Could you
so
quickly describe, Ramesh? Sorry for the interruption. Could you quickly describe your cinematic, how you apply that look?
So in cinematic, one thing is you actually, in terms of processing, cut down your contrast and get your vignetting done, and you know, slightly subdued colors here. And I had to, if so one of the things that I had to do was the bright highlights, which had, if you look at the sky, I couldn't recover any highlights from the sky because I had to also get information from the shadows here. So you see a sort of a weird blue on the sky there. So I mean, instead of getting an oversaturated picture, it's slightly desaturated, less of a contrast, and and vignetting on the borders.
People are remarking that they love the light and the mood, and that there's just so much to see within the image. And if you look at the people to the right, so very
so
nice.
it's a tradition in South India that in the early mornings the ladies come out and make colorful patterns outside the house. That's what you see this lady on the right with the yellow saree. She's making a pattern, what we call it as column, in front of her house. And the lady walking in front of me has seen my camera, and she's camera shy, and her face has gone down. She doesn't want to look into the camera. So I'll go to the next image. This is at the vegetable market, the guy who's unloading, and I like that spot of light on his face and the colorful object that he was carrying. So here it was all about colors and that spotlight on his face. I couldn't help the bright highlights behind him, but I think that also added to the mood of the image here. This is one of my favorite images from Varanasi, from the gullies of Varanasi. It's all about colors, riot of colors, and what helped me was a strong light which accentuated the colors. You see the red towel on the right, and this guy is wearing a equivalent pink shirt, the red wall, the blue shutters, and the green wall over there. Look at all sorts of colors you have, which have been exaggerated because of the sunlight, which is, this is maybe at about 9 o'clock.
Yeah, that is a beautiful, beautiful image, and the shadows and the color and the subject.
Yeah.
It has everything. It has everything.
This was taken at the fishing harbor. The next image, the blue boat and the colors which are reflected from the other boats nearby. And when the sun was really out, and I have exaggerated the colors by giving a bit more clarity and saturation to make it sort of an abstract painting. So on the left, you have the fishing boat, and on the right, you have the shadows from the other boats. And you also see the reflection of the boat here. So let me take another image of directional light here. Actually, I made a mistake here. I've cut his legs here, which is not in the original image, but when I impose the image here on the slide, it's been cut. But in my original image, this man is in full. When I saw this strong directional light, I said I have to take it. I was waiting. This is a temple umbrella, which was pitched over there. I was waiting for a human element. I already had that lady sitting in the corner. And the moment I saw this guy below the umbrella, I said, yes, this is a perfect moment. So sometimes it's also waiting for a perfect moment for your shot, and you need to have that patience. But the first thing is to have an eye whether that particular, what you see is really worthwhile for an image. And that's important. This one is more about patterns and once again, shadows and highlights. This is at a local beach. You have those giant granite balls laid on the beach. On the left-hand side, you find those patterns or the road markings. And then you have the shadows of these cannonballs. So I thought it was a good abstract, once again, playing on the, the patterns of the road, the huge balls here on the middle, and the shadows of the cannonballs on the right.
So when do you decide to make an image black and white?
Because of the contrast and the, it was all about white and black here, And I knew when I had a look at the subject, the textures of the cannonball would have made more impact on the black and white rather than the color. And there's not much of a color anyway. The black road, the white markings, the strong light falling on the cannonball and the black shadows there.
Yeah, I think that's great composition. And it's funny, if everyone who's watching went there, everyone would come up with like a slightly different or maybe a greatly different composition. But I really like that composition, the depth of field, and how we're led into the scene. We have those, those lines of light and shadows leading us to the background. That is very, very cool.
So this is another image from the flower market. Now, yes, this is not the final image when I took my camera, but of course I had to prepare for it. I had to get the spotlight, and there was a lot of processing done in terms of radial filters to shadow out, to remove the shadows and just give the spotlight on his face. And once again, to get the natural colors, which is why I said the white balance is very crucial here. And this, once again, not a post photograph. He was looking at another friend of mine who was photographing him. Normally, when I shoot environmental portraits like this, it makes sense to bring another photographer, because when the subject is looking at that photographer and I shoot him, it doesn't look, it looks more of a candid. So I always make use of my buddies here to get images like this.
Now, Ramesh, for those folks who don't know about these flower markets, you're shooting before sunrise, right?
And I go there after at around 6 when you have the sunlight. Yeah. Otherwise, it's too. The light is so low that you would need a tripod, and you can't use a tripod in those narrow streets there. And there's a lot of movement of people.
Yes.
so between 6:30 and 8 is what we spend time. After 8, the sun is also too hot, and so it's about maximum about 1 hour, 1 hour 15 minutes is what we spend there. I think we just have another 5 minutes. I'll show a couple of more images. Here's a black and white image. You have two artists doing their own makeup. These are street artists, and the person that you see on the bottom is actually doing his own makeup, and it's actually a reflection from the mirror that he's holding up.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, so it's
Isn't
only
it?
the guy on the top is the straight. The guy on the bottom is a reflection. And I think I got a reasonable depth of field to include the guy on the top also. So once again, black and white, and these are all low light photography with a single bulb. It's not a tube light hanging above him. Which is why, because you could see the contour of the mirror, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Here once again is during the it's the same troop that I've taken. Once again, it's so this guy. It's a reflection of the mirror, and you can see the hands of another artist there on the right. This is what we call an auto rickshaw back home. It's a three-wheeler. It's a very popular mode of transport here in India. Taken on a rainy day, sometime around 5:30, and the lights of the tail lights of the vehicles in front. I think, and you can see the silhouette of the auto rickshaw driver here. Here's an image from Varanasi. Exposed for the highlights. It's not a HDR. And they're in the process of, the saree has already been made and they do block printing. And, I was looking at this guy on the right who was being lit by the window from on top of him. And I like these sort of low light images. I usually these low lights are one which attract me. Playing up for the light and shadows here. Okay, this is a HDR. This once again an old palace, supposed to be the bedroom of the erstwhile king. You can see his bed on the right. And I did a HDR because I wanted the exposure to be perfect on the outside, as well as to get the light on the chair and on the bed. So this is a 3-image exposure, 3-image shot. This is a historical temple at a place called Kanjipuram. I'm not sure whether you've been there, Rick.
We have. I was smiling.
Yeah. So it's about 80 kilometers from Chennai. Beautiful place in terms of architecture, and late evening light around 5 or 5:30 in the evening. Getting that golden light on these statues there. So I just have one more image before time runs out. An environmental portrait of a flower seller in the flower market. You can see the red roses in the back, petals of flowers which are packed in front, and the lights on top of him.
Ramesh,
Okay,
do you have a favorite image?
My favorite image here is definitely the first one, this one. I mean, somehow I took a liking to this image. The strong shadows, the colors, the contrast. And the next would be this. This something. The reason why I liked it was because of an extreme low light, high ISO, and I was able to get the details, the sharpness on his eyes, and it was more of a photojournalistic. I have a series of images which could be made into a good portfolio. So, and this was the first time that I was doing so. So it really excited me that I could get a portfolio or a storytelling series of storytelling images.
Well, Ramesh, I would say all of them are my favorite images, and I can't wait. I can't wait for 2022. Again, Susan and I have been there, but usually we're not out. We have gotten up early sometimes and
Okay.
stayed out late. But I think with you as our guide, finding these places and the flower markets, one thing I would like to say to our members before Alec closes with some questions is that, a lot of these techniques that Ramesh talked about, we can apply to our own photography, like the HDR picture that he showed where he wanted to see outside. That's when we really need to use HDR. Or where he's has a picture of the man in the flower market with the light there. We could do this kind of experiment, this kind of exercise in our home. So learning what we what we saw today, we can apply to a lot of our own photography. So Alex is smiling. What is going on with the chat?
I am smiling. We have a few people, including myself, who are signing up to go with you on this trip in 2022. So you should both know that. People are incredibly grateful that Ramesh has shared these images with us today. The comments talk about light, shadows, lines, the drama in the images. Outstanding work is one that just one that popped up. Inspirational work. So people
Yes.
are very excited to see the work this morning.
If I could add one more word to describe Ramesh's work, and I'm trying to think if I've used this recently. I don't think so. It's refreshing. It's
Thank you, Rick. And
no, it's really refreshing. I see so many pictures. Like Susan, I see a picture of star trails, like 30 years ago. Seeing the star trails. With the stars going around the North Star. Okay, a starburst effect. Okay, another picture of Mesa Arch. Mesa Arch is an iconic location.
California.
California. Yeah. So your work is so refreshing and so inspirational. We really want to thank you so much, my friend, for being here. And we'll see you. Maybe we'll need Alec a couple of back-to-back workshops.
Maybe. Well,
thank you, Rick, and thank you, Alec.
There are. Ramesh, there is one other question.
Thank you for giving me an opportunity.
There is one other question, is that people see your work on the phototherapy website, but is there a website that they can go to see your other images?
I have an Instagram page, and I also have a website. I'll send you the link.
Yeah, actually, if you just post it on the phototherapy page, feel free to do that.
That would be great.
Yeah,
that would be wonderful.
Okay.
Yep. Well, thank you so much. It was great seeing you. You brought back a lot of great memories, and I look forward to shooting with you and Alec and some of the. Is Phyllis Webster? Oh no, she's not here. I know she said she was traveling. Is Sissy Fry here?
Sissy is not here. Linda is here, and Linda is joining us on the trip. So,
Linda Cullivan or Linda Marshall?
Linda Marshall has committed today. So
cool. Okay, guys, stay safe.
Together.
And everyone, it's crazy times here, all over the world. And this was such talk about refreshing. It was like a breath of fresh air from all this craziness. So photography really is a very therapeutic. So we're really glad to share this on the Phototherapy YouTube channel.
Thanks, Alec, and thanks, Rick, for giving me this opportunity today to showcase my images. It's really been good of you. And I do look forward to meeting you both in 2022.
Yes. Okay.
And Rick,
stay safe.
We'll see you in Juan on Thursday night.
Yes.
Yeah.
Our next live event on our YouTube channel. So long, everyone. Thank you for joining us, and have a great rest of your weekend.
See ya.